You were 7 years old and already learning how to read a room before you could read a book. You noticed the silence before anyone said a word. You knew which footsteps meant safety and which ones meant hide. You became the peacemaker, the invisible one, the too mature for your age one, because somewhere along the way you learned that being seen wasn't always safe. Maybe you moved constantly and never got to finish a friendship. Maybe you were the one comforting the adults instead of the other way around. Maybe you were criticized for things you couldn't control, or praised only for what you produced, never for who you were. Maybe you were left alone with big feelings and no one to name them for you. You carried all of it quietly. You still do. What if none of that was wasted? What if the very things that broke your childhood were the things God used to build something in you that comfort never could have? By the end of this video, you're going to look at your past differently, not as a list of wounds but as a blueprint. Here's the thing about a scar. It's not just damage. It's tissue that healed stronger than the skin around it. Doctors will tell you scar tissue is actually denser, tougher, more resistant to tearing than ordinary skin. The place that broke becomes the place that holds. That's not a coincidence. That's design. Scripture says something almost shocking about this. In Jeremiah 1 verse 5, God tells the prophet, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." Not after you got it together. Not after your childhood was safe and stable and picture perfect. Before. God's purpose for your life was already in motion before the pain even started, which means the pain didn't cancel the purpose. It became part of the material He was working with. Hear this clearly. God does not waste what He allows. Now, there are two ways people carry a hard childhood. The striver takes the wound and turns it into a performance. She becomes the perfectionist, the overfunctioner, the one who cannot rest because rest once meant danger. He becomes the people-pleaser, calculating every room, managing everyone's emotions but his own, because as a child, peace depended on him. The striver is still, in a hidden way, trying to earn what should have been freely given. Safety, love, belonging. Every accomplishment is really just a quiet plea. Was that enough? Am I enough now? The abider takes the same wound and lets God interpret it instead of carrying it alone. She doesn't deny the pain. He doesn't pretend the childhood was fine. But the abider brings the actual wound to God and says, "You saw this. You were there. Show me what you built out of it." The abider stops performing for love and starts resting in a love that was never up for negotiation in the first place. Same childhood, same scar, two completely different lives. Think about the men and women in Scripture who carried early pain. Joseph, sold by his own brothers as a boy, later says to them, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Not it wasn't evil. Not it didn't hurt. But God took what was meant to destroy him and used it to save an entire nation. Moses, raised in danger, hidden as an infant, adopted into a palace he never should have survived. Every strange detail of his early life became the exact shape needed for a deliverer. Your childhood isn't a random collection of hard moments. It's raw material, not a wound with no meaning, not a wasted decade, a workshop, because here's what nobody told you when you were small and hurting. Pain doesn't disqualify you from purpose. Pain is often the very thing that shapes the purpose it will one day reveal. If you saw yourself in any of that, here's how the shift actually happens, not as a theory but as a practice. Switch 1, the naming switch. The flip. You stop calling it just how I grew up and start calling it what it was. Vague pain stays buried. Named pain can finally be brought into the light. The practice. Write down plainly one specific thing that happened to you as a child. Not to relive it, to release it from the vague fog it's been hiding in. You cannot let God redeem what you refuse to name. Switch 2, the ownership switch. The flip. You stop believing the lie that says, "This happened because something is wrong with me," and start believing the truth that says, "This happened and I am still being formed." The practice. Every time the old shame thought rises, "I'm too much, I'm not enough, I'm broken," answer it out loud with Jeremiah 1 verse 5. "Before I formed you, I knew you." The wound doesn't get the final word on your identity. God does. Switch 3, the surrender switch. The flip. You stop trying to fix, hide, or outperform your past, and instead you hand God the actual pieces, the memory, the fear, the pattern you keep repeating. The practice. In prayer, name one coping mechanism you built as a child to survive. Overfunctioning, people-pleasing, disappearing, and simply say, God, you can have this one too. That's not weakness. That's the exact posture Joseph had to reach before he could say those brothers meant it for good. Switch 4, the purpose switch. The flip. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is God building through this? The practice. Look at the very thing that hurt you most and ask, who around me is hurting the same way, and how did God shape me to reach them? Your scar becomes someone else's map. Here is what life looks like on the other side of this. You stop flinching at your own story. You stop editing your testimony to make it sound cleaner than it was. You start to notice that the same sensitivity that once made you hypervigilant now makes you the person who notices when someone else is quietly drowning. The same independence that once meant no one was coming to help you now means you know exactly how to walk into someone else's hard season without flinching. You look back at the 7-year-old version of you, the one reading the room, the one holding it together, and instead of pity, you feel something closer to reverence. That child was already being prepared for a life you couldn't have imagined yet. It's not about erasing the past. It's about redeeming it. It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about letting God finish the story it started. If any part of this touched something real in you, type this in the comments. God, show me what you built. Not because it's a formula, because naming it out loud is often where the healing actually begins. And this community needs to see you're not alone in this. Share this with someone who needed to hear that their childhood wasn't wasted. And if Bible revelation has helped you see your story differently, subscribe. There's a lot more truth waiting for you here.